Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the major misconceptions about the EU that need dispelling in order to accelerate public opinion in the direction of eventually rejoining the EU. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as a direct result of Brexit, not only have we wrecked our trade and international standing, as evidenced yet again by Boris Johnson's exclusion from yet another major international meeting this week to discuss European security. We also have some of the worst possible options leading our government. Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab, Liz Truss, Priti Patel, Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg and so on would be unemployable in any meritocratic profession. But in order to change this, we need as much of the public to see the damage that Brexit is causing them, both directly and indirectly. And it occurs to me there are two sides to this, a pincer movement against Brexit, so to speak. The first is obvious, and it's what I keep doing. It's what lots of people keep doing because it is the obvious one. Pointing out the downsides that are evident if you just look. Brexit was so hard and so sudden, it's impossible to ignore the fact that our trade is now harder. Yeah, the government were blaming COVID and now they're blaming war in Europe. But other EU countries had to contend with both of those as well, and their trade has not suffered like ours. Once you expose the lies, it is possible to show people that as a direct result of Brexit, we have fewer jobs available, more immigration, less secure borders, less consumer choice, lower wages, higher prices for fuel, energy and food, and higher taxes. None of the promises that were made about Brexit have come true, at least not from the Leave side. The Remain promises are still pretty much bang on. But there is a problem. Although you can show people how damaging Brexit has been, if the misconceptions about the EU are not tackled, they still act as a sort of brake on progress. You'll get people going, yeah, I can see those downsides, but, and the but is not right. For example, look at this take on Twitter. I'm not going to ridicule this. This is actually serious. So they've said, I feel EU is a take it or leave it type scenario. If we join the common market, we're subject to EU standards without being able to vote on them. My understanding is we would be locked in with the EU and wouldn't be able to sell those same goods to the rest of the world. No, let's break this down. If we join the common market, we are subject to EU standards without being able to vote on them. Yes. Any new standards. The current standards, obviously, we did vote on them because we were part of the EU at the time. And we also did get to decide them when we were in the EU and still would have done if we'd have remained. However, I don't know this person. I don't know whether they're a Brexit supporter who voted Brexit right from the start, or are they someone who was against leaving, but feels that now that we're out of the EU, we're as well to stay out? I'll assume the latter because these people exist in large numbers and are subject to misconceptions just as badly as those who always supported Brexit. The thing is, we are subject to EU standards right now and don't get to vote on them. That's with us outside the single market. So it's all right saying we'll be subject to EU standards if we join the single market. We already are outside of it. And there are two pressures maintaining a lot of these EU standards, because people will think to themselves, but haven't we got the right to change those standards now? Yeah, we do, but we won't. Not in a big way. The first pressure is that despite all this nonsense about trade around the world, our main trade is with the EU. Always will be. I did a video recently that showed that we've been increasing our trade with the EU this year. That is despite the fact that this year we've got new import controls. Should make trade with the EU harder. In fact, it does. But because the cost of transport is now rising so rapidly, it's too expensive to trade with countries at the other end of the world. This will always be our reality. Geography is always a massive factor in trade. The extra time and expense involved in exporting to and importing from countries 10,000 miles away is enough to prevent you simply switching European trade to Asian or American trade in large numbers. The second issue is that there is a hugely disproportionate amount of the world's wealth in Europe. The rest of the world cannot afford to buy much of our exports. Even if the transport issues went away, even if we invented teleporters that said, no transport issues, send it wherever you like, most of the money is in Europe. Well, not most of the money, but a lot of the money compared to other markets. Like, people can talk about, they'll be able to name some wealthy non-EU countries. The problem is that they are few and far between and tend to have trade protections, which makes it hard to penetrate much into their markets. Like when we get a US trade deal, for example, it will be about opening our market to them. It will not be reciprocal at all. And we know that from the US proposals that were published a couple of years ago. So we cannot avoid having to produce goods for the EU market, which means we have to follow their standards and without any say on the newer standards to come online. But that's not all. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement that David Frost and Boris Johnson agreed to applies another pressure tying us into EU standards, because if we diverge significantly from EU standards, which legally we can, our trade agreement with them allows the EU to impose extra tariffs on our exports to them in order to level the playing field. So not only do we have to maintain standards for products that we sell to the EU directly, because you just have to, it doesn't matter where you sell to, you have to meet the rules of the market you're selling to, but we also have to do so for products where we don't need to export it to the EU, but if we don't want other exports to suddenly be slapped with tariffs making them more expensive to sell, then that's what we have to do. Then his next bit. My understanding is we would be locked in with the EU and wouldn't be able to sell those same goods to the rest of the world. This is, of course, a straight-up nonsense. We sold goods around the world as EU members, and non-EU countries in the single market right now also export to other countries around the world. In fact, during the 2016 Brexit referendum, clowns like Nigel Farage would extol the virtues of being like Norway or Switzerland, both in the single market. And yet Brexiteers claimed they had an exemplary level of sovereignty, whatever they meant by that. But as incorrect as these statements are, there's no point ridiculing them if they are widely held. They need to be tackled. Otherwise, Brexit lies will continue to work, even on those who aren't anti-EU, but somehow think that although we maybe shouldn't have left, our current position is preferable to trying to rejoin, at least the single market. You know, I talked yesterday about how a Scottish Conservative said that a post-Brexit trade deal with Chile allows us to sell pork products to them for the first time, something that wasn't possible in the EU. This is an absolute nonsense, as Germany and Spain both sell pork to Chile. And they can do it tariff-free. We can't. But lies like this will work without a basic understanding of how the EU and the single market specifically work. They don't stop you selling to other countries. Yes, we have to adopt EU standards, but a couple of things about that. Three. The first is the EU standards are good. In several years, you know, when you try and ask someone, well, name me an EU standard that is a problem for you. Never once had a Brexit supporter able to name me a Brexit standard that is a problem for them. At least not one that exists. Do please remember that the EU did not ban bendy bananas or prawn cocktail crisps. We had both of them, always. Second is that we have to adopt EU standards anyway due to trading realities. Brexit has given us the theoretical possibility for dropping EU standards, which, as I say, is not a good thing, but not the practical ability to do it much. The more we try and use that power, the more we throttle our own trade. As soon as we get a decent government, this will have to be reversed as a matter of necessity. And the third is that outside of the single market, we have the worst of both worlds. Our exports have to meet the high standards of the market buying them. Nothing to do with the EU, that's just trading rules around the world. But the standard for imports is way lower. So we have to produce goods for export to a high standard, making us less competitive, but we accept low standard products ourselves as consumers, making other markets more competitive in our market. This will become increasingly evident once the Australia and New Zealand trade deals come into effect. And this will not be for some years, and you might like to think about that. Why has the government, now that we've signed the Australia and New Zealand trade deals, why aren't they coming into effect for about 10 years? Why is the full impact not being felt until they are long gone from government? Ask yourself that. It's because they know how damaging these Brexit trade deals are, and they want some other bugger to have to deal with the consequences. But there are many more misconceptions as well. This is just a look at one person's, and they'll need to be addressed. I think, frankly, we need to do more, it would do more good, I think, if pro-EU groups worked together on campaigns to also educate the nation than just focusing on pointing out the downsides of Brexit. I know I'm as bad. I've said I'm as bad. But it just seems like repeating the mistakes of the Remain campaign in 2016. I mean, apart from the mistake of putting two toxic anti-EU leaders in charge of it. It was said that we focused too much on the downsides of leaving, and we didn't really bother to explain the benefits of remaining. The second side of the pincer there. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.